We'll share a little bit more. Oh, Nicole. Welcome, Nicole. All right, well, we are about ready to go live here, LinkedIn and YouTube. This is Career Lab Wednesday. Thank you, Jane. We're up and rolling. Career Lab Wednesday. I'm your host, George Miller. I'm here every Wednesday, noon to 1 p.m. Central Time, and I invite all questions career related. I even take questions regarding emotional intelligence. That is my specialty. And the approach that I'll tend to take with your questions is more of a relational thing. Although I have learned a lot of tactics, and other people who join in on Career Lab Wednesday can often share too, specific questions about how LinkedIn functions and specific things in organizations. So all that to say, there's a few ways that you can engage. I love it when you jump in on Zoom directly. I can work with you one-to-one that way. If you can't, if you are at work or traveling or something and you're just listening in, that's fine. And if you want to type in a question into the comment section, Jane will get those over to me and I will do the best I can to get to those questions today. So there's a few ways you can join. You can jump in directly on Zoom, or you can type your questions into the comment section. So, we're coming up on the holidays and there's a lot of change in the world. I guess I could just be on repeat. It feels like for the past 3 years, I could say at any moment, my goodness, things are changing so much. There's probably just the going to be a ongoing way that things are. So we've had people join in who have shared about career changes and how they got to know themselves more in that career change, how they use it as an opportunity to do things that were really important for them to do. And that is the overall premise of today's Career Lab Wednesday, is looking at changes, looking at transitions in career and seeing how to use those to maximize your growth, maximize you reaching your potential. That being said, all questions career related are welcome. So you don't have to have a question on that topic. And I invite, Eric, if you're available, I think following up from last time might be a good way to get us kicked off here with some engagement. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that works for me. I know a big topic, at least when I was on last week, was, the classic imposter syndrome and dealing with that and overcoming it, or at least mitigating how it impacts you, we'll say.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about imposter syndrome and you are you noticing?
Yeah, so it's funny because there's this role that I had applied to, kind of like one of those roles where it's a little bit out of my, I wouldn't say depth, but maybe experience depth, we'll say. Where it's kind of like, let's screw it, let's just throw something in there, see what happens. This could definitely be, if I were to get it, a real career trajectory boost. One of those roles where if I were to get it, do well in it, it's going to open up doors everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been moving extremely quickly. No more than basically 48 hours between events. So I applied, 48 hours later, got an invite to interview. Had the interview less than or a little more than 24 hours later, invitation to second round. And then 48 hours after responding to that, got scheduled for a second round interview. So they've been moving extremely quick, which I would think normal person might think, well, that means they got to be really interested in me if they're moving, at light speed compared to, other instances where you maybe like weeks before you hear back, if you hear back at all nowadays. And me being me, of course, like, well, you know, that could be, but there's also the case where, we're coming up on year end and they're a large, well established enterprise. So they probably have a lot of process in place to kind of help expedite that. I'm just trying to stay afloat. It's not necessarily because I'm like an actual good candidate. It's just the company being efficient.
Okay. So I noticed that you said me being me. What did
Yeah, I
you
guess
mean by that?
I'm usually very harsh on myself with self-critiquing. I think just try to I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. I guess just kind of that continuous improvement mindset. Sometimes maybe a little overboard, and I think also a combination of I was one of those quote unquote gifted kids, quote unquote. So the standards have always been high, and it's kind of stuck where I have this unusually high standard for myself, and if any little slip up is unacceptable, quote unquote, even if it's something relatively minor or a human mistake to make, whatever that may be. You could pick 1,000 different examples.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, Eric, what is the belief that you might be identifying here as you're sharing more?
I think it's looking to kind of actually have some self-confidence in myself that maybe I actually am a really solid candidate for this role, that the company feels that way as well. It's not just a case of business process efficiency, that there is they see a lot of value in me, hence why they're trying to move this process through so quickly so they can make a decision, ideally hiring me and getting that ball rolling sooner rather than later. Versus again, it's just kind of a formality thing.
Is there, so I noticed that you went from imposter syndrome and kind of a limiting belief about, you being an imperfect human being, and that if you make mistakes, there's something wrong with you. And then you moved towards a positive vision of, you know what, maybe they want me. Maybe it is because I'm good at my job. And you started moving in that direction. Is there any feedback that you'd be able to get with anybody at work that would help you get a reality test around it?
It'd be, I think, difficult. I mean, I've gotten positive feedback before at work, but I think in terms of recent, it'd be, I don't know, maybe like difficult's not the word. Just trying to figure out where to place that kind of request question.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense. Just because our company I work for, our fiscal year, so our reviews aren't necessarily calendar year ending.
Got it. Well, Eric, can I check something out with you?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So as you're sharing about it really could be either one, from what you've shared so far. It could be that they just have a good process and there might be a lot of candidates and you're still in the running, and It might like absolutely nothing to do with you and how good you are or not. So it might have nothing to do with you.
Right.
And it also could be the case that, you're a qualified candidate and you're one of the better ones and they need the position filled, so they're speeding things up to get that done. That could be the case too.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
What do you want to be somebody who has value regardless of whether you are the perfect fit for a role?
Yes. If I'm understanding what you're, yeah. And I think, even if it doesn't end well, I think it, unfortunately, I don't want to give too many details because I'm paranoid and Lord
Yeah.
only knows they could back them. But, I think even if I don't get it, I think it speaks well of me that I made it this far for this kind of role with this company. So yeah, I definitely think yes. Regardless what happens, I think I'm still providing a lot of value. I still can provide a lot of value within the roles that I'd be applying for. It's just kind of at the mercy of however companies are handling their hiring process, which is you by both know very well that are not always the greatest.
Okay. Well, cool. Because I think that's useful for what you said of that in the long run, it's better that you're doing this anyway. Like
Right.
even if you don't get this position. And I think the thing that maybe we could work around the imposter syndrome, and what's nice about imposter syndrome as a bucket of as a concept is that it kind of highlights that it's a falsity.
Right.
It's implying that you're not actually an imposter and that it's just sort of whatever typical human neuroses we have that we sort of come up with like negative and negative leaning and flawed tendencies.
Right.
And so it's kind of, I kind of like the term for that reason, because it kind of points out that it's not real, but it does highlight that there's internal thoughts that are not helpful.
Right.
And being able to separate the feelings of fear and anticipated hurt from the thoughts can be really useful, because that way I can say, you know what, I do feel afraid and I will feel hurt if I don't get an offer, but that
Right.
doesn't mean that I'm an imposter. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me. And in fact, I could even turn it around and turn it into a positive thought and say, good thing all my faculties are working. I'm in a situation that has good cause to have anxiety. And I'm noticing that anxiety. Well, that makes sense. Cool. Good going, George.
Right.
Instead of it being, oh, the fact that I'm feeling some fear and anticipating some hurt means that there's something wrong with me and something that I have to fix. Because then I can kind of go spending that energy in ways that doesn't really serve me. It's like when I'm shopping on Amazon for something and I like way over search to try to like save like $3. You know what I mean? It's like, is that even really helpful? And
Right.
not really.
Right. Nope. I hear you. I think I've kind of taken the approach lately that better to put myself out there, at least get the answer versus be like, well, what if I had applied? I'll never know. I'd rather put myself out there, see what happens, and at least I'll have an answer versus playing the what if game.
Cool. I think that's great context for it. Eric, are you open to using an assignment for a week?
Let's do it. Sure.
Okay, so this is an Adlerian concept, is where you challenge a limiting belief by doing something slightly different. So what I was
All
thinking,
right.
it might be kind of advanced, but you've been joining in for a while, is you can take a piece of paper and at the top of it on the left-hand side, write negative, and on the right-hand side of it, write positive. And all you do is you notice your negative thoughts that you have, negative self-talk, like, oh, I'm an idiot, I made a mistake.
Right.
And then you just choose to turn it into a positive thought and say, oh, isn't it cool that I went for something I didn't know how to do and I made a mistake and now I learned how to do it?
Okay, I got you. Yeah,
Cool.
I can. I'll take that, and we'll see what happens when I come back next week.
Sweet. Eric, I'm looking forward to hearing about it.
Yep. We'll see how it goes. Appreciate it.
You bet. You bet. And Nicole, I saw your thing about confidence level. I think, we'll see what comes of this. Welcome. Well, hey, I see we've got a question from Serena Starks, but I also see Joe here. And Joe, if you want to jump in and share an update, I'd love to hear from you. I know that sometimes you're able to join in for a few minutes. So how's it going?
Aloha, George. Everything's going well. Little over a year into the job, things seem to be moving in the right direction. In my first evaluation by the commission, and everybody seems to like the direction we're going. Morale is improving, and so the department's moving in the right direction. It's a lot of work, but I enjoy getting up every day, coming to work, and getting to meet and help make decisions for the men and women of our department and all that they do for our communities.
Oh, fantastic. That's great to hear. What is there anything that you want any coaching on?
No, I love listening to other people, their issues and concerns and things that they're asking questions about, so that I can help mentor and coach, teach my subordinates as they move up in our organization and help them reach their full potential. So looking at what other people are going through in institutions, as Eric was describing in his hiring process, what does that mean and what does it look like from the other side? What is the person who's applying for that promotion, who's applying for, are we providing timely information? Are we providing information at all? Are we keeping everybody aware of what's going on to let them know that we haven't just lost everybody, but we're still in the process of making decisions and moving people forward? And so that's really important. Having been somebody on that other side, like Eric has, looking at promotions, waiting for answers, whether yes or no, it doesn't matter. Just you want closure or continuation, and so that's really important. So I take a look at that, and I want to make sure that all of our supervisors take a look at that.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, well, Joe, it's great having you here, and I think it's so cool how you stay on the pulse of things and are always listening in and hearing what you can be picking up. So for everybody joining in, Joe joined in, I don't know, maybe it was 2 years ago when you started.
2 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. And worked with Gordon and me, and is now the chief of police in Honolulu. So used coaching and has been developing things there in Honolulu and given us updates on how it's going. And is really a leader in the community, and a man, I got to say, of high integrity, who has used mistakes in the past to develop himself and in some really beautiful ways. So it's such a pleasure and honor anytime you join in, Joe. I really appreciate you. Well, thank you. So let's see, we have, did I freeze or did everybody else freeze? Well, I'm going to keep going, but I think my internet just froze for a second. So, okay, great. Thank you, Jane. So we have a question coming in from Serena. I have an informal phone call with an employer in a different industry. He thinks my background is a fit, but the lack of industry knowledge gives pause. Do you have advice for how to address this in a formal interview? Oh, that's a great question. Joe, welcome back. I just saw that you froze, but good to have you here. I was just sharing a little bit about you and your journey. So we're looking at this question of, is a fit? Now, I want to know, Serena, he thinks the background is a fit. Did he say that the lack of industry knowledge gives pause, or is that something that you're bringing into the discussion here? Let's take a look here. So you are going into a formal interview and you've had some interaction with, okay. I'm going to assume that the lack of industry knowledge is your input, Serena. And even if it's not, oh, and you want to get a formal interview. Okay. He thinks. Okay, great. So you have an informal call, you want a formal call. And I don't know whether he or you are worried about industry knowledge. What the most important thing, Serena, that you can do in an informal or in a formal interview is you're going to ask intelligent questions about the role that you're inquiring about. Clearly, he's already interested in you because he's setting this up, even if it's not a formal interview. So you want to ask questions about that role, and you can be upfront. You don't need to lead saying, "Oh, I don't have I have a lack of industry knowledge." I wouldn't say that. Since your background is a fit, what you're going to say is more things like, "This is my experience. I imagine that this is how my experience in this different industry would be helpful in this role. Here are the things I've accomplished previously, and is it accurate that you're wanting these things handled in this role?" Okay, great. Here's how I would go about resolving that. How does that sound to you? What are the what other input? Here's the research I've done so far on this. Is there anything I'm missing? So you don't have to, you can use your ignorance as a tool to ask questions. You don't need to try to pretend like you know everything. That pretending like you know everything will tend to isolate you in a conversation. So, Serena, I hope that helps. If you're hearing this and have any more questions following up, let us know or jump directly in. But I'll speak about this kind of broader. So in interviewing, what you want to do is interview the interviewer. Interview about the company. Of course, you're going to do research beforehand. You're going to have assumptions, guesses about what the role is and what they're hiring you for, and what the overall need of the company is. But then you're going to investigate. You're going to find out if what you think is accurate or not. And you don't have to pretend you have all the answers. And in fact, if you do, it'll hurt you. So that's the overall approach: is do your research, have questions that you want to ask about the role, about the company. And when you're having the conversation, make sure that you're feeling good about, okay, great. I think I'm really understanding this role, and this is something I'm excited about, or something I'm not. Okay, great question. This is wonderful. So, going to do a quick room reset for everybody who's joined in the meantime. This is Career Lab Wednesday. I'm your host, George Miller, and I invite all questions career related. We started off today talking about things changing, seasons changing, job roles changing, lots of change in the world, and how to use the change as a way for me to develop as a person, how to develop myself. If I'm resisting to change, and I will likely not grow as much. So having more of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset is going to be really helpful, especially when things are changing so much. Being able to flex and flow, that is a skill that you can develop. So we were talking a little bit about that. And then we dug in on the imposter syndrome, and how that just the title of that, I'm working through imposter syndrome, how that just highlights that it's not true, that there's a falsity. If I'm thinking that I'm having imposter syndrome, it's a high likelihood that yes, I am viewing the world through a lens that is likely inaccurate. And so one of the ways that you can build up confidence is to notice limiting thoughts, notice negative self-talk. Like if you're somebody that catches yourself kind of saying, God, I'm such an idiot. Stuff like that. Notice the little ways you put yourself down. Become more aware of that, and then you can choose to have a positive thought from that. So, I make a mistake on something. Like I'll just say, I just took a test this morning, 3-hour test. I didn't like, not too many people I know like these kinds of tests. Anyway, see, I think I'm already trying to justify something there. So I'm scared about how the result came out. If I passed the test, I'll celebrate that. If I didn't pass the test, I could go into a whole lot of negative self-talk. Be like, see, oh, you're such an idiot. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. Now you have to pay to take the test again, and what a pain. And that I could just do that, or I can notice those thoughts and say, you know what? Maybe I could have gotten more rest. Maybe I should have planned more to give myself time to study and make sure I was well rested before the test. And, but at least I went for it, and I can always take the test again. Notice how much better the second option feels, and there's directionality to it. I can do something with it. Whereas the negative self-talk will just kind of lead to me continuing to stay in a place of labeling myself with imposter syndrome, labeling myself as, less than. So we worked some on that. And then we got into, yes, thank you, Nicole. Totally. I know, like we're all I don't know, I'm picturing myself as a little biochemist, and I got little tricks and tools to change the way that my thinking works, which is the truth. We all have that. As human beings, we are verbs, we're alive, things are changing, and I'm able to tweak my consciousness and play with how I talk to myself. So totally, there's lots of cool stuff in there. And then we were digging in on an informal interview and somebody hoping that they can get an actual interview out of this conversation, and that they heard that the potential boss thinks that their background is a good fit. And then I think that they kind of brought in, but it's not the same industry. And so I'm having some concerns about that while going in to this informal interview. And coaching around that is, well, maybe they want you for your experience back there, and maybe they don't want somebody from the industry. You don't know that yet. And that could actually be a great conversation to have in there, is saying, hey, you see my background in this other industry, and my hunch is that you're wanting me to come over for these reasons, and I'm excited to talk about it. I've had successes in these ways at my former companies, and now I'm excited to see about how I might be able to apply that here. So what you do in any interview situation is remember that listing all of your accomplishments and just trying to prove yourself isn't the best approach. Worst case scenario when you do that is they'll just write you off and say, thank you for your time, and you'll never hear from them again. Or they might say, oh, cool, here's this person. Oh, it sounds like they work really hard. And you know what? We need somebody for this role. And I don't know if it's an exact fit, but we got to get somebody in here. And it seems like, we can check this off the box. And so, yeah, let's just get them in and hope for the best. That's not a great way to start off either. So, you want to go into an interview investigating and getting more clarity about the role, and helping, it often ends up helping thank you, Eric, helping the person interviewing you, if it's the boss too, thinking about their role, the role that they're trying to fill, and what really goes into that. Not every place that you might be applying has a great interview process or really even understands their own business. So if you're asking meaningful questions, you're providing value right there, just in helping them think it through. So that's where we're at so far. Now, I would like to check in with everybody and see where you'd like to go next. You can always jump in on Zoom directly. I love it when you do that. I can work with you one-to-one. If you can't do that, you can always type your questions into the comment section. And if you want to remain anonymous, that's fine. Just let us know. And you can share your questions in the comment section. Jane will get those over to me. Or you can jump directly in on the Zoom link if you are looking for that. Thank you, Nicole. Take care. Good having you. If you're looking for that, go ahead and grab it. We'll put that into the comment section. Okay. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions coming in. So I will share a little bit more, but we can certainly close early today. And there's a few things that you can dig further into. We are in the final stages of our career app. So if you have an Android, you're welcome to log in and use that already. It's available for testing. If you have an iPhone, you're going to have to wait another few weeks. So we'll go ahead and throw that link in to the comment section. Thank you, Jane. So you can go ahead and do that as a way to continue this. You know, the way that I'm thinking about that is like having a career coach in your pocket, you know, like kind of like what I do with Wim Hof when I'm going into ice water. I can always jump on the Wim Hof app and, you know, check in with things, use some templates in there. And so for things in career, whether even if you're set in your career, but you got a review coming up and you want to prepare for it, you can use the same interview preparation flow to help you do that. So just a tool for you that you can use outside of just this hour each week. So I'm hoping that that's something that will be useful to everybody. And then you can also stay engaged on YouTube. We are I've been building some content on there, but Jane and I will be updating more of that soon to come, especially in the new year. But there is all of the career labs from the past listed out there, so you can get into that playlist and search through the titles and find anything that you want specific help with. And if you're looking for help with your resume and interview, that's available too online in our YouTube channel. And of course, you can set up 15 minutes with me. I love discussing with you and oftentimes is helping you get to a point of clarity in that 15 minutes that you can take and run with. And if you need more time, we can always set up a coaching agreement outside of that. So there's a few ways to stay engaged outside of this hour on Wednesday. So go ahead and check those out. And we'll get the link to my calendar in just a moment. And you can check that out as well. And okay. Well, I think with that, I think we're ready to wrap up. Blessings, everybody. Here is to the Halloween season and lots of holidays coming up. Many blessings. I will see you next Wednesday, noon to 1 p.m. Central. Take care, everybody.